Welcome to Tarik Talk. Let's get into this episode. Frieze New York is back for 2026, returning to the shed from May 13th through May 17th, and once again transforming New York City into the center of the global contemporary art world. This year marks the 15th edition of Frieze New York, and the energy around the fair feels bigger than ever. Located in Hudson Yards, the shed has become the home of Frieze New York over the last several years, and the venue itself really changes the experience of the fair. Unlike the older tent structure Frieze used on Randall's Island years ago, the shed gives the event a more architectural, urban, and integrated feeling with the city. You walk outside and immediately you're surrounded by galleries, museums, restaurants, Chelsea exhibitions, the High Line, and non-stop activity across Manhattan during Frieze Week. For anyone unfamiliar with Frieze, this is one of the most influential art fairs in the world. Alongside editions in London, Los Angeles, and Seoul, Frieze New York has become one of the key moments on the international art calendar, where collectors, curators, museum directors, artists, celebrities, and galleries all come together under one roof. And this year's edition is massive. Frieze New York 2026 features approximately 68 to 70 galleries from around 26 countries, bringing together a combination of blue-chip powerhouse galleries, mid-career programs, and younger experimental spaces. One of the major conversations around this year's fair is the strong representation of Latin American galleries and artists. Frieze has specifically highlighted its increased focus on Central and South American voices in this edition, which feels especially important considering how influential Latin American contemporary art has become globally over the last decade. You have galleries coming from Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Chile, and beyond, alongside major international exhibitors from Europe, Asia, and the United States. At the same time, many New York galleries continue to anchor the fair, creating this balance between local presence and global dialogue. Some of the major returning galleries include Gagosian, Hauser Wirth, Pace Gallery, David Zwirner, Perrotin, White Cube, and Thaddeus Ropac. But what makes Frieze exciting is that it's never only about the mega galleries. One of the most anticipated sections every year is Focus, curated once again by Lumi Tan. The Focus section spotlights younger galleries that have been operating for under 12 years, often giving visitors the chance to discover artists before they become internationally established names. And that's really one of the most exciting parts of Frieze New York. You can walk from a booth presenting museum-level historical artists directly into a presentation by an emerging artist having one of the first major moments of their career. The fair creates these collisions between generations, markets, aesthetics, and geographies all happening simultaneously. This year, one of the big stories coming out of the Focus section is the Focus Stand Prize, which was awarded to Buenos Aires-based W Galleria for its presentation of indigenous Chilean artist Seba Calfuqueo. That award really reflects a larger shift happening in the art world right now. Institutions and fairs are increasingly recognizing artists and galleries working outside traditional Euro-American centers, and Frieze 2026 seems very aware of that momentum. Another thing that separates Frieze New York from many fairs is the programming outside the booths themselves. This year's Frieze Projects expands beyond the shed into collaborations with major institutions across New York City, including Whitney Museum of American Art and Dia Art Foundation. Instead of only functioning as a commercial fair, Frieze is increasingly positioning itself as a citywide cultural platform. There are performances, installations, moving image works, conversations, and immersive projects happening throughout Chelsea and Hudson Yards during the week. One of the featured performance artists this year is Kite, collaborating with Counterpublic, while other programming includes projects by David Lamelas and Jonathan Gonzalez. And honestly, that expansion beyond the booths is important because it changes the feeling of the event. Frieze Week becomes less about simply buying and selling art and more about creating an ecosystem across the city. During Frieze Week, New York itself becomes part of the experience. Museums coordinate major openings. Galleries launch new exhibitions. Fashion brands host dinners and activations. Collectors move from breakfast meetings to studio visits to after parties late into the night. The city becomes completely saturated with contemporary art. And speaking of fashion, Frieze has increasingly become a crossover moment between the art world and luxury fashion culture. Vogue even highlighted the fashion presence at the opening days of this year's fair, emphasizing how Frieze has become a social and cultural event far beyond just the art itself. That crossover between art, design, fashion, architecture, and lifestyle feels especially strong this year because Frieze Week overlaps with NYC design and several other cultural events happening across the city. So visitors aren't only seeing gallery booths, they're experiencing New York during one of the busiest creative weeks of the year. And when we talk about partnerships and collaborations, Frieze 2026 is also leaning heavily into institutional relationships. The collaborations with the Whitney and Dia Foundation are major examples, but the fair also continues partnerships with nonprofits and curator-led initiatives. That balance between commercial success and institutional credibility is part of why Frieze remains so influential. Because yes, there's obviously a market side to all of this. Major sales happen here, museum acquisitions happen here, careers can completely change after a successful Frieze presentation. But there's also a curatorial side that shapes conversations happening across the art world for years afterward. And even for people who aren't collectors, Frieze can still be inspiring because it offers this rare opportunity to see an enormous range of contemporary art practices all in one place. Painting, sculpture, video, installation, performance, conceptual work, textile-based practices, digital art, socially engaged work, it's all happening simultaneously. You can spend hours walking through the fair and still feel like you missed something. That's part of the excitement. There's also something fascinating about the psychology of an art fair itself. Galleries spend months preparing these booths. Artists create works specifically for these presentations. Booth layouts are designed almost like temporary exhibitions. Every wall, every lighting decision, every placement matters. And for 5 days, this temporary city of art exists inside the shed. Then suddenly it disappears. The works go back into collections, museums, storage, galleries, or shipping crates traveling across the world to the next destination. There's something very cinematic about that. And for New York specifically, Frieze continues to reinforce the city's role as one of the global capitals of contemporary art. Even in an era where the art world is increasingly international and decentralized, New York still holds enormous influence. During Frieze Week, you really feel that concentration of energy. Curators from major museums, international collectors, emerging artists, critics, journalists, influencers, and art lovers all moving through the same spaces at the same time. It becomes this intersection of culture, commerce, and creativity. So whether you're attending Frieze New York to discover emerging artists, see museum-quality works, network within the industry, experience the city during Art Week, or simply observe the atmosphere, the 2026 edition feels like one of the strongest and most internationally connected editions in recent years. Frieze New York 2026 runs from May 13th through May 17th at the Shed in Hudson Yards in New York City.